Do you feel like this is something that's going to push us into a special session?
It could, potentially, sure. If the conference committee locks up, if the House is too far away from the Senate, then we may not be able to pass a budget. But in the end, I think what needs to happen, the goal of all of this, is that we pass a budget that is smart, that looks towards the future, has foresight, is not being balanced on the backs of our school children, isn't pushing down the bills to local governments to raise their property taxes. If we can't achieve that, then that bill shouldn't be passed.
What about you?
I think we will work it out within the time frame that we have. We've gone up against the Senate before with significant differences. We've always been able to work those out. And let me tell you, we all work out the same stack of money. The stack of money doesn't change in the Senate, it does in the House. It's what the controller says we have, and the Senate will have to adjust their budget to fit ours.
And we're talking about the end of the session. Let me ask you about something else. You've said that you are committed to stay on through the session, but then there might be the possibility of Railroad Commission after that.
Yes, yeah. Michael Williams has indicated he's going to resign from the Railroad Commission. There's going to be a seat there. There's Commissioner Jones has indicated she might run for the U.S. Senate. So I think there's going to be an opportunity there, and unfortunately in my legislative district, it's one of those that did not grow as fast as the rest of the state, and so there's a shortage of people in the Texas Panhandle compared to the rest of the state. So some of us that live and work and represent people up there are going to have to change what we do. I think it's a great opportunity to me to go to the Railroad Commission because I've earned my living for the last 50 years in the production of oil and gas. So I think I have some expertise to bring to that field.
What he was just saying about some of those West Texas districts, do you feel like we're going to have a legislature of the future that's too many urban members?
No.
Yes. They seem to scare more.
Well, you're the
what else to say? I don't know what else to say. Absolutely not.
You're the redistricting vice chair. I mean, what kind of trends are you seeing with what members are talking about they want?
We need to make sure that our legislative districts reflect the demographics of the state. The state has become more diverse. It has become more urban and metropolitan. And so naturally, to respect the one person, one vote principle, you have to redraw these districts, and you have to draw them where the people are. And right now, that is primarily in the metropolitan areas. And so I think what you're going to see is a reduction of state reps in West Texas, East Texas, rural East Texas, and even in rural South Texas.
And inner city.
Dallas is the only county that is losing a state rep, and its neighbor, Tarrant, is adding one.
Who loses out when something like that happens?
Well, the people lose out. A lot of the economy of this state is based on agriculture. And if you look at the production of the state, the GMP of the state, there's a tremendous amount of it produced by people in rural areas. And the fact of the matter is that we don't need vast amounts of people to pick cotton or gather potatoes. We have mechanized machinery where a person doing 1,000 acres of cotton can do it with 2 people. And it doesn't ever have to hire anybody else. And so we see agriculture taking advantage of the technology that's out there, being able to do more with less. But the economy of the state depends to a great deal on the agricultural production of the state. And so not letting them have some representation for their economic output is just going to hurt this state in the future.
This is interesting because we disagree. Our worldviews are different. And the way I see it is most of the economy is determined by what's happening in Dallas, in Fort Worth, in San Antonio, in Houston, in McAllen, in El Paso, in our big cities. How those cities are doing economically is how the state is faring. All of the economic activity, just about all of it, is happening in our metropolitan areas where people live, where they are creating new ideas, inventing new technologies, and creating the next wave of quality jobs. We need to make sure that the Texas legislature is a reflection of that reality.
They don't produce one particle of food and fiber and that's the basis of society. You
We-
have to have food and
yeah.
fiber, or none of your technology will work.
We
Because you
used
can't.
to. We used to. The cities are the historic place of agriculture. When land became too expensive, we moved that out to rural areas. And so as the needs of the cities change, we turn to our rural areas to do things in a less expensive way. But all of the ideas and the inventions agriculturally have happened where people congregate, where they exchange ideas, and that happens in cities.
I feel like we haven't been hearing about redistricting as much as we have in the past this session, and because maybe bigger issues.
Because we're in a financial crisis. That's why. And it has taken.
It's a larger pie. I mean, when you look at the problems facing us, redistricting is pretty far down that list.
Yeah.
Schools, nursing homes, healthcare, all of those are really, really big for it, all driven by revenue. Revenue is the only issue in this legislative session. Absolutely.
How have you been dealing with redistricting, on the legislative level? Have members been talking a lot about it, behind those doors?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
I haven't been there yet, but I'm coming.
Warren has set his sights for a different area in state government, and I congratulate him on pursuing that goal. And so he's probably less concerned about how to draw that district he's leaving. But I think the rest of the legislature is every day looking at a map, considering a new configuration. I heard one member tell another, "Are you lusting after my precincts?" When you hear that, you know it's a legislative session that's dealing with redistricting. So it's definitely happening, but it is less important than the main issue of balancing this budget.
Because it's so important to our viewers here, and we have had a lot of talk about the Central Texas districts recently, especially with what's been happening with HD 48. Do you see any big changes going to happen, Williamson, Travis, Hayes counties?
What do you know?
I know that not everybody's going to be happy, but yeah, absolutely, it's going to change. I mean, you look at the demographics change, and there seems to be more Republicans than there used to be. So Republicans are kind of in control. I guess we're going to draw more Republican districts than we do Democratic districts. So it's this is one of the times when even have a good friend like this, but I'm going to have to vote against him probably on some of those issues, because Republicans in control will draw the Republican districts. Democrats in control always drew Democratic districts. The shift is here. It's going to happen. A lot of people won't be happy, but everybody will be represented.
In the end, this is to determine who's going to be defense and who's going to be plaintiff. And to go to the courts. And my hope is that as best as possible for the House districts, we can draw a legal map, have more of a say ourselves instead of having the courts draw the districts. With congressional redistricting, I don't have any expectations that's going to be a fair process. I think it's going to be very partisan. And ultimately, it's going to be a court to decide if we respected the Voting Rights Act. Over the last decade, 89% of the new growth has been determined by Hispanics and African Americans and Asians. The state is changing, and those changing demographics, I think, just need to be respected. The federal law says so.
Josh's redistricting is just a feeding frenzy for lawyers. There will be thousands of lawyers that enter into something, either defending or opposing every district out there.
No, this is something that Warren and I can agree on, because neither of us are lawyers.
That's right.
In the end, it seems like no matter who wins or who loses,
you're
going to
get
always
sued.
win, right?
You're going to get
you
sued.
always get sued, and the lawyers always have a game to play.
And let me tell you, at the end of the day, the taxpayers pay both sides. So there's no reason for them to settle. So I sometimes think we ought to start at the courts and just see if we agree with them and let it go at that. Yeah.